All right, time to talk about cardinality, and specifically table relationship cardinality. So, by definition, cardinality refers to the uniqueness of values in a column. So, if you hear people talk about a one-to-one relationship or a one-to-many or a many-to-many, those are examples of relationship cardinalities. Now, in Power Pivot, at least in the current version, all relationships in a data model really should follow a one-to-many cardinality. And you already know what this means. It just means that each column or key that we're using to join tables can only have one instance of each unique value in the lookup table, which is exactly what makes those primary keys, but they may have many instances of each unique value in the data tables. That's why we call them foreign keys. So none of this is really new. It's just kind of putting the academic definition around it. So in this case that we're looking at here, we're joining calendar to the Food Mart transactions data table, and we're using the date column as our key. And if we look at the calendar lookup at the top, that's our lookup, that's our primary key. And since there's only one instance of each date in that lookup table, it's marked by a 1 shown here right under the table. And since there are many instances of each date in the data table, because it's a foreign key, you'll see an asterisk on this end of the connection. Now, let's dig into why it's so important to have a one-to-many cardinality. First, let's consider what's wrong with trying to create a many-to-many relationship. Let's say you've got two tables here. You've got a product lookup on the left, you've got a transaction table in blue on the right, but the only difference between this product table and the ones that we've been working with is that this one has a duplicate value of a product ID. So when you compare that against the transaction table, which also has duplicate values, justifiably, that's going to create an issue. In fact, when you try to create a relationship between these two tables on product ID, you'll see something like this, which says the relationship cannot be created because each column contains duplicate values. Select at least one column that contains only unique values. And that's really just a long-winded way of saying that you're trying to create a many-to-many relationship and that one side of the relationship needs to have uniques. So problem here again is that we have multiple instances of each ID in both of our tables. And the thing is, even if we could force this relationship to work, even if we could drag that relationship and not get the error, it kind of just defies basic logic. So if you did somehow make this relationship, how would you know which product was sold on the first, the second, or the third? Because based on the product ID of 4, that could mean that you sold Washington cream soda or you sold Washington diet cream soda, and there would be no way to differentiate between the two. So in a nutshell, that's why many-to-many relationships simply don't work in a relational data model like this. Next up, consider a one-to-one relationship. And of the two, this one's much, much more innocent. In fact, there's actually nothing fundamentally incorrect about it. It's just a little bit inefficient. So here we've got a unique set of product IDs in a product lookup table, as you'd expect. But then we've got a second table that also contains only unique product IDs. Now, in this case, creating that relationship using the product ID field creates a one-to-one relationship, since each ID only appears once in each table. And again, unlike many-to-many, there's nothing really illegal about this relationship. There's nothing totally wrong with it. It's just a little bit inefficient. So a solution here could be to simply merge those two tables into a single valid lookup. Now, I know what you're thinking. We just talked about how merging tables is bad. You should never try to jam things together like this. But consider this. If we take this approach, it still respects the laws of database normalization. Since A, all rows are unique and directly related to the primary key, and B, this merged table still serves a distinct specific purpose because both were offering attributes or characteristics related to a single product ID. So that's a good summary of why one-to-many relationships are the way to go and what's wrong with one-to-one and many-to-many. And just to wrap things up, let's actually take a look at our own data model and make note of the cardinality between each of our relationships. So here in the model, I've got my 6 relationships here. And as you can see on the lookup end, the primary key side of every relationship, you've got this 1 just beneath the table. And then on the many side, which is generally the data table side, you've got this asterisk. And again, that tells you that that's the foreign key, that's the many side of the relationship. So everything looks good. All our 1s are connected to lookups. Our asterisks are connected to the transactions table, with the one exception of this joint lookup, which is perfectly valid. So there you go, basic relationship cardinality 101.